Okay, so we're back for another deep dive. And this time we're taking a look at a book review we found fascinating. The book is John Sandford's Lethal Prey. And what really hooked us is this case. It's a cold case. It's been cold for 20 years, the murder of Doris Granfeld. And what's really interesting is how this case is suddenly thrust into the digital age.
Yeah, what's striking right off the bat is the sheer weight of time. 20 years with no answers for a murder like that. It leaves a huge scar in a community, especially a small one. The review really emphasizes that this wasn't something people just forgot about. It's a wound that never really healed.
Absolutely. And you can imagine the families involved. The sense of injustice must be so profound, 20 years with no significant leads. The case just sits there gathering dust in the cold case files. But then comes this really unexpected twist. And it's all because of Doris's twin sister, Lara Granfeld. She's facing her own mortality and decides to take a pretty drastic step. What the review calls a potentially explosive move.
She uploads the entire case file online. Every single piece of evidence, every interview, every document. It's all out there for anyone to see. It's a bold move, possibly born out of desperation, but also this incredible determination to find answers. I mean, think about the implications of that. What happens when you take a case that's been buried for 20 years and suddenly expose it to the entire internet?
It's almost like this quiet whisper suddenly becomes a roar. You go from a handful of investigators poring over a file to potentially millions of eyes scrutinizing every detail. And then there's the $5 million reward Laura's offering for information leading to the killer's capture. So it's not just the information that's out there, it's this huge financial incentive as well.
What's so fascinating to me is that collision of two very different worlds. The old school world of cold case investigations and the hyper-connected world of the internet.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like these two worlds are suddenly forced to collide, and the results are anything but predictable. The review talks about this digital whirlwind that erupts around the case. True crime enthusiasts jump in, amateur sleuths start digging, and then you have the online personalities all weighing in with their theories and speculation.
And accusations. It's almost inevitable, right? When you have that many people looking at a case from so many different angles, there's bound to be disagreement and finger pointing. And that really highlights one of the central themes here, doesn't it? The double-edged sword of online investigation.
Exactly. On the one hand, you have this incredible potential for uncovering new information. People with completely different backgrounds and perspectives might see connections that the original investigators missed.
Yeah.
Maybe someone remembers a tiny detail from a news report 20 years ago, and suddenly they see how it fits into the bigger picture.
Or maybe someone with expertise in a particular field, let's say digital forensics, is able to analyze the evidence in a way that wasn't possible back then. But then on the other hand, you have this overwhelming flood of information. It's a tidal wave of speculation and misinformation. How do you even begin to separate the wheat from the chaff?
Well, that's the challenge facing Lucas Davenport and Virgil Flowers of the Minnesota BCA. They're the ones tasked with sifting through this digital mountain and trying to find something solid, something that can lead them to the killer. And the review does a really interesting job of highlighting their contrasting personalities and skill sets.
It's like they're this unlikely duo, right? You have Davenport, who's a seasoned investigator. He's got that instinct that comes from years of experience. Then you have Flowers, who's more of a free spirit, maybe a little unconventional, but he's also incredibly sharp. And he's got this knack for understanding the digital world in a way that Davenport didn't. So they each bring something unique to the table.
And what's fascinating is how all of this online attention actually starts to benefit the official investigation in unexpected ways. The review mentions that the sheer volume of scrutiny actually triggers old memories. People who might have been reluctant to talk before, or who just buried the memory deep down, are suddenly prompted to reconsider what they saw or heard.
It's like this digital ripple effect, right? It starts online and then it spreads outwards into the real world, touching people who might have had no intention of getting involved. But then, of course, there's the flip side of that coin. The investigators still have to figure out which of these recollections are genuine and which are just noise. Maybe someone's trying to insert themselves into the story for their own reasons, or maybe they're deliberately trying to mislead the investigation.
Absolutely. It's this constant balancing act, trying to harness the power of the internet without getting swept away by the chaos. And then just when things couldn't get more complicated, there's a major breakthrough. The murder weapon, which had been missing for 20 years, is suddenly found.
Talk about a game changer. I mean, after all this time, they finally have a tangible piece of evidence, something they can analyze, something that might have the killer's DNA on it.
But as you might imagine, this discovery has another effect. It puts the killer on high alert. For 20 years, they thought they'd gotten away with it. But now their secret is in jeopardy. And as the review points out, This is where things take a really interesting turn. It becomes what they call a cat and mouse game.
Because the killer is likely watching everything that's happening online, right? They're following the news reports, they're lurking in the true crime forums, they're trying to anticipate the investigator's next move, and they might even be trying to manipulate the online conversation to spread disinformation or to throw the investigators off the scent.
So suddenly, Davenport and Flowers are facing a challenge that most cold case investigators never have to deal with. They're not just trying to solve a crime that happened 20 years ago. They're also trying to outmaneuver a killer who's using the very tools that are supposed to be helping them.
And that forces them to rethink their entire approach, right? They still have to do the traditional detective work, the interviews, the evidence analysis, but now they also have to consider the digital angle. How is the killer using the internet? And how can they use it to their advantage?
The review makes it clear that they're essentially running two investigations in parallel. They're working the case the old-fashioned way, but they're also constantly monitoring what's happening online, trying to track the killer's digital footprint. And that brings us to another really interesting aspect of this case, the way the book review itself frames the story.
Because it's not just about solving a murder, right? It's also about exploring how the digital age has fundamentally changed the nature of criminal investigations. I mean, think about it, 20 years ago, none of this would have been possible. The internet as we know it didn't even exist.
And the review makes a really thought-provoking point about the resolution. It suggests that it might not be completely satisfying for every reader. What do you think that tells us about the impact of the internet on this case?
Well, it makes me wonder if maybe there's no neat and tidy ending. Maybe there are still some unanswered questions, some loose ends that can never be tied up. And maybe that's partly because of the nature of online information. It's so fluid and open to interpretation. Maybe in this case, the truth is somewhere out there in the digital ether, but it's never fully grasped.
But even if the ending isn't perfectly clear, the review does emphasize that the journey is compelling. You get to follow Davenport and Flowers as they navigate this complex landscape. And you really get a sense of the challenges and opportunities that come with investigating a crime in the digital age.
And through it all, there's this one constant theme that really shines through: the enduring human need for justice. Even after 20 years, the desire to find the truth and to hold someone accountable hasn't faded. And in a way, Laura Granfeld's decision to upload the case file is a testament to that. It's like she's saying, we may not have been able to solve this case the traditional way, but we're not giving up. We're going to use every tool at our disposal to get answers.
And that brings us to a really powerful question for our listeners to consider. How has the internet changed our relationship with justice? Has it made it easier to find the truth, or has it just made things more complicated? What are the ethical implications of crowdsourced investigations? And what happens when the pursuit of justice collides with the often chaotic world of the internet?
Really thought-provoking stuff. It's clear that the digital age has opened up a whole new frontier in criminal investigation, and it's going to be fascinating to see how things evolve in the years to come. So thank you for joining us for another deep dive. We'll be back soon with more stories that explore the intersection of technology and the human experience.
Until next time.